The 1960s didn't just change culture, they changed sound. At the start of the decade, rock and roll was still built on tight structures, short radio singles, and familiar chord progressions. By the end of it, songs were longer, louder, stranger, heavier. Studios became laboratories, guitars became weapons, drums became thunder. And somewhere between the British invasion and psychedelic experimentation, a handful of tracks didn't just succeed, they rewrote the rules. These are 10 genius songs from the 1960s that changed rock music forever. Number 10, Iron Butterfly, In-A-Gadda Da Vida, 1968. Before heavy metal had a name, before progressive rock-filled arenas, there was a 17-minute monster called In-A-Gadda Da Vida. Released in 1968 by Iron Butterfly, the track was unlike anything dominating radio at the time. Most pop songs still hovered around 3 minutes. This one stretched past 17, and it wasn't shy about it. In-A-Gadda Da Vida, baby. Built around a thick, distorted organ riff and crushing guitar tone, the song felt darker, heavier, more hypnotic than the flower power psychedelia surrounding it. The title itself, famously a slurred version of In the Garden of Eden, came from a late-night jam session where vocalist Doug Ingle reportedly mispronounced the phrase while drunk. The name stuck. So did the atmosphere. Don't you know that I'll always be true? The structure breaks convention. After a brief vocal section, the song dives into extended instrumental territory. Guitar solos, a thunderous drum break by Ron Bushy, swirling organ textures that feel almost ominous. This wasn't background music. It was immersion. The album version took up an entire side of the vinyl record. That alone was radical. Rock bands weren't supposed to dominate that much space with a single track. But In-A-Gadda Da Vida proved they could. Oh, won't you come with me? The song became a massive commercial success, selling millions of copies and helping establish the viability of long-form rock compositions. It paved the way for bands like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple, groups that would take heaviness even further. What makes it genius isn't subtlety, it's audacity. It dared to be longer, louder, heavier, stranger, and in doing so, it cracked open the door for hard rock and heavy metal to walk through. In 1968, rock music stopped asking permission, and In-A-Gadda Da Vida was one of the songs that made sure it never had to again. Number 9, The Velvet Underground and Nico, Heroin, 1967.
For the kingdom, if I can, 'cause it makes...
If In-A-Gadda Da Vida expanded rock outward, Heroin stripped it bare. Released in 1967 on The Velvet Underground and Nico, this wasn't a radio-friendly single. It wasn't polished psychedelia. It wasn't chasing chart success. It was confrontation. Written by Lou Reed, Heroin does something few rock songs dared to do at the time. It refuses to judge, refused to glamorize, refused to soften. It simply describes, I don't know just where I'm going. The structure is deceptively simple. 2 chords, repeated, over and over. But within that simplicity lies tension.
I'm cool singing on dear.
The tempo shifts unpredictably, slow and restrained one moment, then suddenly racing forward in chaotic acceleration. Guitars screech, drums pound faster. The song feels like it's spiraling out of control. And that's the point. The music mirrors the experience Reed is describing. Euphoria, panic, release, collapse.
I'm rushing on my run, and
In 1967, most of rock was leaning toward colorful psychedelia and optimistic experimentation. Heroin was grayscale, stark, urban, uncomfortable. It didn't become a hit. It wasn't meant to. But its influence was seismic. Punk rock borrowed its raw minimalism. Alternative rock borrowed its emotional honesty. Indie music borrowed its willingness to make discomfort part of the art.
And I tell you, things aren't quite the same.
Artists from Patti Smith to Sonic Youth to Nirvana would later cite the Velvet Underground as foundational. What makes Heroin genius isn't technical complexity, it's emotional risk. It proved that rock music didn't have to be glamorous. It could be abrasive, honest, dangerous.
And I guess that I just don't know.
And once that door opened, there was no closing it. In the late 60s, while some bands were painting the world in bright psychedelic colors, the Velvet Underground showed that darkness could be just as revolutionary. And rock music was never the same again. Number 8, The Rolling Stones, Gimme Shelter, 1969. If Heroin exposed inner chaos, Gimme Shelter captured the world on fire. Released in 1969 as the opening track of Let It Bleed, this wasn't just another Rolling Stones song. It was a warning. The late 60s were unraveling. Vietnam, political assassinations, riots in the streets. The optimism of early psychedelic rock was fading fast. And into that atmosphere came one of the most haunting openings in rock history. That tremolo-drenched guitar intro. Keith Richards' riff doesn't explode. It creeps in, dark, ominous, like a storm forming on the horizon. Oh, a storm is threatening. Mick Jagger's vocal sounds urgent, almost paranoid. But the real lightning strike comes when Mary Clayton's backing vocal enters. Rape, murder. It's just a shot away. Her voice cracks under the intensity. It's raw, unfiltered, legendary. That moment alone elevates the track into something transcendent. Musically, Gimme Shelter is tight and controlled, but emotionally, it feels like the world teetering on collapse. The tension never fully releases. It just hangs there. Unlike many protest songs of the era, it doesn't preach. It observes. It absorbs the fear of its time and turns it into atmosphere. What makes it genius is how cinematic it feels. It's not just a song, it's a landscape, a mood, a document of 1969's anxiety. It would later become synonymous with the Vietnam era, especially through its use in films like Apocalypse Now and multiple Martin Scorsese movies. Decades later, that opening riff still signals danger. Gimme Shelter proved that rock music could capture the psychological weight of an era, not with slogans, but with sound. By the end of the 60s, rock wasn't just about rebellion, it was about reflection. And the Rolling Stones turned chaos into one of the most powerful recordings of the decade. Number 7, The Doors, Light My Fire, 1967.
Untrue. Know that I would be a liar.
If Gimme Shelter sounded like the end of the 60s, Light My Fire captured its ignition. Released in 1967 on The Doors' debut album, the song arrived at the exact moment psychedelic rock was taking over the airwaves. But unlike the jangly brightness of the West Coast scene, The Doors brought something darker, more sensual, more hypnotic.
Come on, baby, light my fire.
The opening organ line, played by Ray Manzarek, is instantly recognizable. It doesn't rush, it pulses, cool and controlled. You know that it would be untrue. Jim Morrison's voice doesn't shout, it smolders. The lyrics are simple, almost cryptic, but loaded with suggestion. Come on, baby, light my fire.
Come on, baby, light my fire.
At over 7 minutes in its album version, the song broke radio conventions. Most singles were trimmed for airplay, but the extended instrumental section, featuring a swirling organ solo and Robbie Krieger's flamenco-tinged guitar break, became central to its identity. This wasn't just a rock song, it was a journey.
No time to wallow in the mire.
When the single version hit radio in 1967, it shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And suddenly, something shifted. Rock music became mood-driven, atmospheric, experimental. What makes Light My Fire genius isn't just its hook, it's its tension. the cool restraint of the verses, the explosive chorus, the extended, almost trance-like instrumental break. It blurred the line between pop accessibility and psychedelic exploration. The song also marked Morrison as a new kind of frontman, poetic, unpredictable, dangerous. Not just a singer, but a presence. Light My Fire didn't just dominate summer 1967. It helped define it, because by the mid-60s, rock music wasn't just something you danced to, it was something you experienced, and the Doors turned a spark into a cultural blaze. Number 6, The Who. My Generation, 1965. Before distortion became standard, before punk had a name, there was a stutter. Why don't you all fade away? Released in 1965, My Generation wasn't polite. It wasn't melodic in the traditional sense. It didn't try to smooth its edges. It attacked. Written by Pete Townshend, the song captured something raw in mid-60s Britain. Youth frustration, class tension, the feeling of being dismissed by older generations. Hope I die before I get old. That line alone became a generational slogan. Musically, it was just as revolutionary. The aggressive bass solo by John Entwistle was virtually unheard of in mainstream rock at the time. Bass players didn't step forward like that. Entwistle did. Loud, distorted, unapologetic. Keith Moon's drumming felt chaotic, almost reckless. Not tight and restrained, but explosive. And Roger Daltrey's vocal delivery, stuttering, sneering, defiant, gave the song a confrontational edge. Some believe the stutter was a jab at mod culture's amphetamine use. Others thought it was simply an attempt to sound tougher. Either way, it worked. My Generation became an anthem. It didn't just represent youth culture, it declared war on complacency. What makes it genius is how far ahead it was. The aggression, the stripped-down ferocity, the emphasis on attitude over polish, all of it would become foundational to punk rock a decade later. Bands like The Clash and the Sex Pistols would build on the blueprint The Who sketched in 1965. In a decade filled with harmony-driven pop and polished British invasion singles, My Generation was a punch to the face. It proved rock music could be confrontational, not just romantic, not just catchy, but defiant. And once that defiance entered the bloodstream of rock, it never left. Number 5, The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Purple Haze, 1967. If My Generation was defiance, Purple Haze was detonation. Released in 1967, this wasn't just another psychedelic single. It sounded like the future crashing into the present. From the very first chord, that tritone-heavy dissonant opening, you knew something had shifted. Purple haze all in my brain. Jimi Hendrix didn't play the guitar the way others did. He bent it, warped it, set it on fire, sometimes literally. The riff of Purple Haze wasn't clean or traditional. It was distorted, thick, and aggressive in a way mainstream radio had rarely heard before. The use of fuzz, feedback, controlled chaos. This wasn't background music. It was sonic experimentation pushed into the charts.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Lyrically, the song was mysterious, surreal. Many assumed it was about drugs. Hendrix later suggested it was inspired more by a dream and science fiction imagery. That ambiguity only added to its mystique. But the real revolution was technical. Hendrix treated the studio like an instrument. Backward guitar effects, layered textures, Octavia pedal distortion that gave his solos an otherworldly scream. The solo itself doesn't just decorate the song, it erupts from it. What makes it genius isn't just virtuosity, it's redefinition. Hendrix expanded what the electric guitar could do, not just rhythm and melody ancient, but texture, atmosphere, noise as art. After Purple Haze, rock guitar could be wild, abstract, explosive. It didn't have to follow rules. And once Hendrix rewrote those rules, every guitarist who followed had to respond to him. In 1967, the sound barrier in rock music shattered, and Purple Haze was the blast. Number 4, The Beach Boys, Good Vibrations, 1966. If Hendrix expanded the guitar, Brian Wilson expanded the studio. Released in 1966, Good Vibrations wasn't just a hit single, it was a production revolution. At a time when most bands recorded songs quickly, often in a single session, Wilson spent months crafting this track. He recorded fragments in multiple studios, experimenting with modular sections that could be rearranged and layered later. It was meticulous, expensive, risky, and completely unheard of for a pop single. I'm picking up Good Vibrations. The song shifts between moods seamlessly. Dreamy verses, explosive choruses, ethereal bridges. The structure feels almost symphonic, more like a mini suite than a standard rock track. And then there's the sound. The electro-theremin glides through the chorus like something from outer space. The layered harmonies remain lush and unmistakably Beach Boys. The bass pulses beneath it all with precision. This wasn't surf rock anymore. This was studio architecture. Good Vibrations became a #1 hit in both the US and the UK, proving that ambitious experimentation could still dominate mainstream charts. What makes it genius isn't just melody, it's method. Wilson treated recording as composition. The studio became an instrument. The idea of assembling songs from separate sessions, what he called pocket symphonies, would later influence artists from the Beatles to progressive rock pioneers and beyond. In many ways, it pushed the Beatles to go further on Sgt. Pepper. Rock music, after Good Vibrations, was no longer limited to live performance replication. It could be sculpted, engineered, imagined in layers. In 1966, pop music stopped being just performance. It became production, and Brian Wilson led the charge. Number 3, The Kinks, You Really Got Me, 1964.
You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Before heavy metal had a blueprint, before hard rock dominated stadiums, there was a distorted power chord that changed everything. You Really Got Me, released in 1964, didn't ease its way into history. It kicked the door in.
Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so.
That opening riff, raw, buzzing, aggressive, came from Dave Davies slashing the speaker cone of his amplifier with a razor blade to create a rougher, dirtier sound. It wasn't polished distortion, it was broken, and that broken tone became revolutionary. You Really Got Me Now. The song is simple. 2 chords driving most of the structure. Minimal ornamentation. No elaborate harmonies. No studio trickery. Just force. At a time when many British invasion bands leaned toward melodic pop refinement, the Kinks went primal. The rhythm is pounding. The guitar is thick and relentless. Ray Davies' vocal is urgent, almost desperate. This wasn't polite British charm. It was hunger. You Really Got Me shot to #1 in the UK and broke into the US top 10, announcing the Kinks as a major force. But its true impact came later. What makes it genius isn't complexity, it's reduction. It stripped rock down to its most aggressive elements and amplified them. No excess, no sweetness, just electricity and attitude. In 1964, rock music found a new gear. And You Really Got Me was the moment it shifted into overdrive. Number 2, The Beatles, Tomorrow Never Knows, 1966.
Relax and float downstream.
Released in 1966 as the closing track of Revolver, this wasn't just a Beatles song. It was a leap into the unknown. Built around a single droning C chord, the track abandons traditional chord changes almost entirely. Instead of harmonic movement, it relies on texture, rhythm, and atmosphere. Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream.
It is not dying.
John Lennon wrote the lyric after reading Timothy Leary's adaptation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The words feel less like a pop song and more like guided meditation, but the real revolution was sonic. Producer George Martin and engineer Jeff Emmerich treated the studio as a laboratory. Tape loops were manually fed through machines. Seagull-like guitar sounds were created by reversing tapes. Vocals were routed through a rotating Leslie speaker to give Lennon's voice a disembodied, almost cosmic quality.
It's not dying.
Ringo Starr's drum pattern, steady, hypnotic, almost tribal, anchors the chaos. This wasn't just experimentation, it was intention. The Beatles weren't trying to replicate a live performance. They were creating something that could only exist in a studio. Rock music as sound collage. In 1966, nothing else on mainstream radio sounded like this. No jangly hooks, no romantic harmonies, no safe structure, just immersion.
Lay down all thoughts.
Tomorrow Never Knows opened the door for psychedelic rock, electronic manipulation, sampling culture, and ambient experimentation. Artists from Pink Floyd to Radiohead would later echo its influence. What makes it genius is its fearlessness. At the height of their fame, the Beatles chose to end an album not with a sing-along, but with an audio experiment. They didn't follow trends, they set them. And with Tomorrow Never Knows, rock music officially entered the modern era. Number 1. Bob Dylan. Like a Rolling Stone, 1965.
So fine, through the bumps of time in your prime.
If there is one song that split rock music into before and after, it's this. In 1965, radio had rules. Singles were short, folk was acoustic, lyrics were safe. Then Bob Dylan plugged in. Like a Rolling Stone runs over 6 minutes long, nearly double the standard radio format of the time. Columbia Records didn't want to release it as a single. DJs were hesitant. It broke every commercial convention, but once it hit the airwaves, there was no turning back. How does it feel? From the first snare crack and Al Kooper's now legendary organ line, the song feels alive, urgent, confrontational.
People call, say, beware, dog.
The lyrics aren't simple love stories. They're cinematic, layered, full of imagery and social commentary. It reads like poetry set to electric fury. And that was the revolution. Before this, rock lyrics were rarely this ambitious. Rarely this literary, rarely this emotionally complex. The song didn't just expand the length of singles, it expanded what rock music could say.
Call, say, beware, dog, you're bound to fall. You thought they were all...
Commercially, it became a massive hit, reaching number 2 on the Billboard charts. Critically, it reshaped the landscape. Bands across the Atlantic took notice, especially the Beatles, who soon began pushing their own lyrical boundaries. Like a Rolling Stone gave rock permission to grow up, to be sharper, smarter, bolder.
You thought they were all hitting you.
What makes it genius isn't just the hook, though that chorus is unforgettable. It's the shift in expectation. After Dylan, rock wasn't just entertainment, it was art. And in 1965, with one 6-minute storm of a song, Bob Dylan didn't just change the charts, he changed the language of rock music forever.